So, mascot horror, a topic that's a pretty reoccurring topic on the channel, and more specifically, with the specific topic of mascot horror games on Roblox. That I either talked about a video or two ago, or a while ago, depending on when either this or other videos I'm working on gets finished. But back on topic, mascot horror is a common topic on this channel. It's something that people definitely have heard about is it on Roblox, which I will be revisiting today, for no reason aside from more games releasing from the time between the last video and now. Yep, that's the only reason. Nothing else. Joking aside, I do genuinely want to talk more about it and revisit 2 games from the last video to clear up stuff I got wrong about both, majorly. Meaning today I will be covering 5, technically 6 games today. 3 technically 4 new games, and again revisiting 2 from the last video. I say technically because for the 2 new games, both have similar gameplay and game type, or genre type, but different aside from that. But before we begin, if you enjoy this and want more like it, subscribe. You know, the basic YouTuber junk. Alright, with that out of the way, let's start with our first game. So, Forsaken, a game that you either have heard about or know little to nothing about it aside from it exists. And one I'm not sure counts as mascot horror on a technical sense because the characters are from Roblox community lore from what I can gather. But before we get into that, what is the gameplay like? Well, each round you have to complete generators and survive the killer, but you can also fight back, kinda. I only played 5 rounds for this video, 1 as Noob, the character, 3 as, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that, and 1 as Builderman. This is just Engineer from TF2. But I bring this up because on NG and the other one, you can fight back. NG, sentries. The other, a very, very slow slash, which I think I landed twice. But I still kinda like the option to fight back in general against the killer. With some characters, but some other ones you can only run away and hide. Something I really do like is the generator puzzles, because it isn't just the skill check type of puzzles common in these types of games. It's the one where you have to connect multiple dots and find a way for them to connect without overlapping one. But that's it for survivors, at least. I did play 1 round as killer, and it was Jason. Just straight up Jason, which honestly was kind of clunky to play. I only got 1 kill, so nothing really to say there. And that's pretty much all my thoughts on Forsaken. I didn't enjoy it, but I do think the game could use or really benefit from a tutorial, or at least a message explaining how to play one of the starter characters. Because with how complex the game is, with abilities and multiple characters having different types of abilities, it can be overwhelming, but it's understandable after you get it after a few rounds of playing. But now it's time for the technicality I mentioned in the intro, and that is... I call it a technicality because of the main gameplay style it shares with Forsaken, both being one player as the monster or killer, and the other as survivors. But where it differs with Pillar Chase is not letting you defend itself, and it being more themed around characters from other horror things, mainly creepypastas and games, such as Jeff the Killer, Springtrap, and Baldy, and including original monsters. And I was going to originally write about my previous times playing Pillar Chase, but while writing, the game had a major overhaul, so I decided to play a few rounds of that. And dude, this game is peak. Like, just straight up peak. Granted, I'm not that good, but not to call Forsaken bad for this, but I feel like dying in Pillar Chase is actually on me, and it's my fault for not knowing how to outmaneuver them, and compared to the killer in Forsaken, where I die from the same thing, but the killer knows which move best to use it on out of the 5 to kill me, while I'm figuring out what move does what on my character. Another thing that in Pillar Chase, the objectives are completely optional. Like, you can do them to get extra coins, which you can use to buy stuff for killers or new killers, such as skins, quotes, etc. And speaking of killers in Pillar Chase, they're much simpler as well, for Springtrap that is. Again, like Forsaken, I only got to play 1 round, but I killed more people than Jason, at the very least. But again, I think that's mainly due to just the simplicity of playing as a killer, or just the simplicity of Pillar Chase compared to Forsaken in general, which isn't a bad thing. Like, you have 3 abilities. The first, I think, gives you a damage boost and highlights survivors. I really don't know how to use that. The second giving you a light speed boost, and the last one being a throwing axe. You think Scott played this for inspiration? I joke, but the axe throw is pretty much similar as Dead by Daylight. The difference is it's Springtrap's main weapon. And if you throw it, you just punch survivors, and the ability becomes a slam, which is also pretty good. But with that, I think it's time we move on to our next game. But I do want to suggest something with both games being constantly updated. Well, I say that, but now as of writing, Pillar Chase is temporarily down, and Forsaken is currently having a major controversy with the game's owner. I do want to suggest 2 killers for both games, those being Blue from Rainbow Friends and Dandy from Take a Guess. But I just think it would be pretty cool to see other Mascot Horror Games acknowledge each other. And if you're wondering who would go to what, I think it would be funny to have Blue in Forsaken and Dandy in Pillar Chase. Also add Sin Murder Drone to Pillar Chase, and Flowers as a killer to Forsaken, and also Jim from Jim's Computer as a survivor. So, our next game is Threadville, a game that I've seen almost no one talk about, which is weird despite the large amount of visits for the game and the constantly high player count. But why is that? Well, I have one guess, but I'll get to that later. So let's get into the gameplay, or what the game plays like. How many people will I piss off if I said the game bugged and I looked up the ending to the game? Alright, let me explain. I did try and record a playthrough of the first chapter. The first time the game bugged and failed to load the game properly and sent me to a room with text on the wall explaining it's a rare bug that they don't even know how to replicate to fix. Alright, that's fair. But the next time I tried, I got I want to say decent bit into the game. But before, I got a different bug where I was in the house. when looking up a guide, I was meant to be teleported outside the house into the next segment. The game does let you play a little before that point, and from what I've played and watched, the gameplay seems to be the same: collect number of objects before continuing. Just instead of bees trying to kill you, it's the dog from earlier, but now spooky. If anything, it makes him kind of cuter to me. Honestly, reminds me of a dog stuffed animal I have. Anyways, what's the gameplay actually like? Well, it's pretty much just Rainbow Friends, but with puppets, and a more unique art style, if we're comparing the first chapters at least. And that's not a bad thing. It gives more people a chance to play the game, and that's pretty much it for Threadville. I did like it despite the bugs, and there is a story, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it without fully understanding it. And having a look at the ending, there is a chapter 2 in development, which I'm really interested in, going off the teasers we have. But we should probably move on to our next game. So, funny thing about this section, I originally was going to play a different game called Cookie Fun Time, a joke mascot horror game that I only heard about because of a video that was in my recommended one day. But I got scared playing it for the first 3 minutes. A joke game has more tense atmosphere than a good majority of Roblox horror games. But with that out of the way, let's actually get into the game. Skipper is probably the most generic in terms of mascot horror in general. What I mean is, this has a lot more in common with those single chapter games Fusion and Daco play, and either everyone forgets about or inadvertently spawns the next franchise to add to the pile. But that's not to say Skipper is bad. Hell, it's actually not that bad and pretty competent for Roblox, if I'm comparing it to games on Steam. But that also means I don't have much to say, really. I did find it a little tense in the beginning, but after the first encounter with, I'm assuming the kangaroo is also called Skipper, there's not much else to say, really. It's unknown if the game will get a chapter 2, but I have a feeling it's probably not happening. And that's about it for the new games in this video. So let's talk about the two with stuff I got horribly wrong in the last video. With the first being, oh boy, where do I start with this? So, Piggy, the first game I will be re-talking about and clearing up some things, but mainly talking about stuff I didn't bring up from the first video. So, starting off and with how and why Piggy got popular. And according to some comments, the reason the game got popular is apparently due to it originally having Peppa Pig theming. And from a YouTuber I don't watch called Flamingo covering the game. But from the tons, and I mean tons, of Piggy videos I started to watch, YouTuber that I occasionally watch, Creekcraft, also played it. Okay, with that out of the way, let's actually discuss the game itself. And for this video, I will be playing all of Book 2 and the Decay chapter. Reason because apparently Book 2 is better than Book 1, and not talking about it is the equivalent of playing Doors and not bringing up Seek. Alright, so let's see what I've been missing out with Piggy.
My name is Edwin. I made the mimic. It was difficult to put the pieces together.
You know, in hindsight, I probably should have said I'm only covering the main number chapters. But anyway, yeah, that was actually pretty good. I can definitely see why people grew attached to the game. The gameplay, while I still have some issues with it, I do like it more than Chapter 1. And as for the story, I don't understand it. but that's definitely mainly due to me not knowing the full story. But from what I can gather, there's like a post-apocalypse with us and our group surviving against the infected and other groups that want to kill us, but they later join us. Typical apocalypse shenanigans. But there's also this weird guy thing. I have no clue what he's here for. He just appears and says we're not like the others and we're immune to the infection. Is that the reason why our character is a human / a Roblox avatar? Wait, why are we the only human? Getting back on track, that's pretty much it for what I have to say for book 2. I enjoyed it, but I won't say it's my favorite Piggy thing. Although I can definitely say that for... So, the Decay chapter. Another chapter that was suggested I play. And before playing for this video, I did see a little footage of it, and it looked interesting. Like something I would actually want to play. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So... this chapter is peak, but I do have some issues with it. But before we get into those, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, when you think Piggy chapter, you're probably expecting the traditional unlock doors while an enemy chases you around the map. Decay plays more like a normal horror game. Not survival horror, because your crossbow has infinite ammo, and you do need to unlock different doors with the color key that it goes to, but it's in first person, and there aren't really any puzzles. There's one very simple one you have to do to get into the vents before the chase, and you just have to break the floor to get into the vent system, but that's pretty much it. Although, speaking of the vent section, I should bring up my issues, or mainly one issue with the chapter, and that's the lighting. Now, I should probably say this could just be a solely me problem, but when playing, it seems like the flashlight / lighting would lag behind me for a second, then move back in front of me. The main area I noticed this was the valve area and, again, the vent section. Again, this could just be a me thing, but I definitely think if it isn't, this should definitely be fixed. But with that out of the way, I think that's pretty much it. There is a story that's pretty light. The only thing I can gather is we play as a bunny and we have to escape the subway, while also dealing with our guilt of leaving, I assume, our bunny family so we can survive. But we somehow get infected and kill this random survivor and get shot by their friend. And an unknown person says cryptic stuff about it could have gone differently. But yeah, I did enjoy this. And with that ending tease, I wouldn't mind a sequel chapter to this, because there is more you can do with this style. But we'll have to wait, and I swear, if I make a third Mascot Horror on Roblox in a game I didn't plan for releases while I'm making the video, I'm gonna lose it. So, Decay Part 2, or Decay Delirium, is the sequel chapter to Decay. I think. I only say that because of the story, mainly the ending, but I'll get to that later. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get into the game. So that was interesting. So the gameplay, it was pretty much the same as Chapter 1, just with more puzzles and chase sequences, and even a defense section near the end. and even a new weapon, which I do like. I also do like how this chapter takes a more psychological horror approach. Not as intense as something like Silent Hill, but still notable. Now to the story. I'm going to be honest, I don't have a clue what is going on. Going off the ending and the locations in this chapter, my best guess is that this ending is what actually happened in reality, mainly due to the text at the end of the first chapter saying if it went differently. That difference being the bunny we play as actually escaping the subway and making it to the forest. And they're going through the memories of playing at a play place and their house, and then finally their time in school, before being found by their sheep friend and either succumbing to the infection and infecting them, or the sheep friend already being infected and just finding our bunny character to confirm them turning. Now again, this is just my guess, mainly due to because I don't know the full Piggy story, so I could definitely have gotten this wrong, but if not, I really like the story regardless. But that could be my bias because there is a sheep character, so this chapter is already a 8.5 out of 10. But before I get sidetracked or Decay Part 3 post-mortem releases, let's move on to our final game of the video. So, the second one I will be re-talking about, and our sixth and final one of the video, is Dandy's World. A game that, ever since the first video, I've gotten way more into, and I mean way more into. To put it in perspective, when I first recorded footage, I only had Boxton, and the most recent update at the time was, I think, the Shelly update. And while not having all the tunes, heck, the only main tune I have, a main tune being a special type of tune in the game, is Bassy, the one you get during the Easter event. But point is, I've played this game before. I am so sorry for making a very, very obvious joke. But what is the gameplay like? Well, I did get it somewhat right, that you have to turn on machines and do skill checks. But what I got wrong was every couple of floors, the total amount of machines you have to do increases. And in the most recent update, there's a new machine type with a different skill check, but is now a little red circle you have to land in the light gray or yellow parts. And I kind of dislike this. I do like the idea of new machine types, but I think it could have been something more simple that is difficult but easy to understand. I saw an idea for a different machine where you have to look around for the valve for it around the map, which I think would have been a better idea, although this could just be me not used to the new machine type yet, or not using the new tune, Russia, who has a high skill check stat, which definitely seems to be for the new machines, but still. Moving on to another thing is the game does have lore, but it requires you to get 50% on a Twisted. And there's also character interactions with certain characters in the elevator in between floors. And that's it for Dandy's World. Again, aside from not being used to the new machine, but liking the idea, I really don't have much to say. The game is still getting updated, and if I were to suggest something, just more machine types that are maybe easier to understand, and also a cheap tune. And that's it. I really enjoy the game and look forward to when new updates happen. And that's all I really have to say. So let's move on to... So, in conclusion, looking at Mascot Horror on Roblox again, it definitely is still popular, with more games popping up and gaining a lot of traction, and some having a smaller but still decent amount of people interested in it, and others still staying popular, and if not, getting more popular with time. Maybe next time, Skipper. Although with talking about and repeating both the words mascot and horror for a long time, it has made me a bit thirsty. So let's hope this time nothing bad happens when I drink. You know, people have drank worse, so I should be fine. Oh well, that's not... that's not... You know, this is kinda on me for drinking a mysterious black liquid.